I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Makar Kadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and to the Akim out here that's pushing this truth. This is the brother Yakulam from the GMS Boston camp, and out of Juan Rakdazal, which is Lord willing. This video is it's edifying, and it's a faith builder. Going back into my dream journal, I want to speak on a vision that I had while one night I was reading the book of Second Ezra, and I nodded off, and it was a bad vision. I ended up waking up crying, and before I get into it, I want to bring out John 15:18. If the world hates you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. If ye were of the world would love his own. But because ye are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. Remember the word that I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my sayings, they will keep yours also. Now in this vision, I awake and I'm in a classroom, and when I look towards the front of the desk, it's an Edomite woman sitting at the desk, but her back is towards me, and she turns around giving me this ill grin, and on the TV was something going on with Hebrew Israelites that disgusted her. And when I went to stand up, there was double doors in the classroom. They opened up, and it was like U.S. soldiers. They were there to come get me. And when I went with them, they brought me to a store, a bodega, that also was a courtroom. And what reminded me a visual for the Akim would be in the Dark Knight Rises movie, when the scene where after they went through all that chaos, where Scarecrow was judging the people, where the courtroom just looked a mess. You had the criminals just standing around and people were getting judged, but that's what it looked like. And on my way into the bodega, this person with a hood, they bumped by me and they left like this fanny pack on me. And I didn't look what was inside, but there was a line of people getting ready to be judged. So I was standing there and I was nervous. And Matthew 10:17, but beware of men, for they will deliver you up to councils, and they will scourge you in their synagogues, and ye shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles. But when they deliver you up, take no thought how or what ye shall speak, for it shall be given for you in that same hour what ye shall speak. For it is not ye that speak, but the Spirit of your Father which speaketh in you. And when it was my turn to go up before the judge, it's like a spirit came over me, and I was condemning them. Like, the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai is going to destroy this place. You people are going to be destroyed. And they sprayed this gas on me, and I could feel it. I could feel the pain in this vision, and they cast me out. Like if, they already knew that I was going to die. So then it weared off, and I was standing there, and at this point, everything was in chaos, and there was a house that was next to me, and I opened up the fanny pack that person with the hood put on me, and it was a cell phone. Now, when I put out the cell phone, I called my woman, and I said, listen, things are getting real. She was at work, and the call was interrupted by the feds, and they were saying, listen, we have your location. We're going to send some agents. So this Issacharite dude, he came up to me and tried to rob me. And I was like, listen, you don't see what's going on here? The place is in chaos. The last thing you should be wanting to do is rob me. So he said, cool. So he went in his house to look around. And I just stepped into the door and was like, listen, the feds are on their way. You might want to keep it moving. So I kept it moving. And I came to a house. And in front of the house was two Edomites. They were in these white hazmat looking suits, and they had blood all over them. They were taking a cigarette break. So I got down soldier style, and I was crawling in the front, and I went around to the side. It was an open garage, and there was a black car there. And when I went to open the door, you couldn't start the car. It needed a microchip in order to start it. So I was like, fuck. So when I closed the door, right when I closed the door, At that point, this Jake woman with her child ran out the side door screaming. She had blood on her, and the guys in the front, they became aware, and another woman started running out, so I started running down the street. And now, it was basically a street where you can do a full circle, and I say that because something told me to hop the fence, and when I hopped the fence, I basically cut over to the backyard, which led into the next street, and I was hopping over the fence, and I was running, and I hid in the bushes, and the woman, one of the Jake women, she ran all the way around into the backyard, and the two Edomite men caught her, and there was a machete right there, and I grabbed it, but something spoke to me and said, stay still. And when I stood still, I can hear the lady like she was in the process of being raped, and then ultimately you can hear her crying out to where she was murdered. And then they left. And 2nd Ezra 16:74 came to mind. Hear, O ye, my beloved, saith the Lord, behold, the days of trouble are at hand, but I will deliver you from the same. Be ye not afraid, neither doubt, for the Lord thy power is your God, and the God of them who keep my commandments and precepts, saith the Lord power. Now after they left, I climbed the fence, and when I went into the next street, it was actually in an area of Boston, Eggleston. There was a gas station, and there was a little area where people, it looked like homeless people, where they were dwelling, and outside of that was Edomites in suits with glasses and construction hats on. And it looks like they were surveying the area, like they were going to tear it down to rebuild, most likely them being those fancy condos that brothers are seeing all over. So I had my garment on, I noticed, and I tucked it in my jacket, and I walked with my head down, and I walked inside the house, and there was people there. They had a little bit of soup, so I got some soup, and then I realized they were Edomite men in the suits. They were looking through the windows, and a woman, she looked at me, and it was like she was going to tell who I was. So I went out the back door, and it was like it was dark, and it was raining, and to visualize that would be for those Akim who've seen the movie Spawn, when Spawn was hanging around the church, and it was always dark, and it was always raining. It was an alleyway with two metal concrete you walk down, but then it had the two metal fences at the top. And I remember right when I stepped out that door, women were coming up to me, and they were touching my face, and they were saying, please take me, please let us come with you. And it made me think of Isaiah 4:1. In that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name, to take away our reproach. And I remember I was pushing them aside. I didn't want to be bothered with them. And at this point in the vision, I remember crying, and I actually woke up out of this vision crying. I heard a name say, my slave named Jamie. And when I looked, it was my father. It was my Ephraimite side. It was my father. It was my aunts. It was my uncles. They all had took the mark of the beast, which is the RIFD chip. I knew because, they were holding their hands, and it's like they were put inside a prison. And I remember I was crying, like to see my father. I was crying in the dream, and I remember my uncle, he was like, don't talk to him because you can get us in trouble. Like, they had took that mark, and now, they were able to function in society. But it looked like a prison to me. It was gates, and I was walking through a back alleyway, and I remember at that point I was sad. And I was walking through the alleyway, and when I walked out the next part, it was like these Fed trucks, they had came up, and they were looking for me at this point. So I went and I hid behind some cans, and you can see the van pull up, and these Edomites got up, and it's like this unmarked vehicle pulled up too. And now what happened was I went over to one of the cars, and once again, it needed like some type of chip or scan in order to run to car. And one of the Edomites, they see me, and when they went to run towards me, I jumped. But when I leaped, it's like I leaped on top of the gas station. And then I had hopped down, and I started running, which looked like to be on my area in Boston where I live, Fort Hill. And once again, it was dark. The sky was purplish, and it was pouring. And I was running through the streets trying to find a way to go. And I came up to this church. Salaki brothers, I came up to this church, and it was gates. And it was dark, and I can hear them coming. And I didn't want to go into the church. And when I looked down, over the fence, I could see a dark ditch leading into the sewer. And that was one of my options. But then after that, when I went to go around, I must have walked by the front of the door, and what was ever that fanny pack that was given to me in the beginning, it scanned, and the door opened up, and there was just like this white light that was standing there. And then I woke up. And when I woke up, I remember I was sitting up and I was crying. And this was right after I was reading Second Ezra's, and I fell asleep. And once again, like I say, Akim, I want to share my visions, and a lot of them I had before coming into the truth, before the Lord brought me into the fold to do His work. And I hope these videos, they're edifying, not just edifying, but they're also faith builders. And like I said again, if Akim want to bring out precepts, their interpretations of it, it's a beautiful thing. And I just pray that it's a faith builder in these coming times, because there's a lot of things in that vision, like going into the persecution. We aren't greater than our master, Yahweh Shai, and he was brought before councils and judges and persecuted. And some of us brothers, we're going to have to die for this truth. And we pray out of our desire that the Lord push that spirit on us to stay firm for the name Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. And that widows men, 144,000, 12,000 from each tribe of you so-called Negroes, Latins, and Native Americans. And also going into that day when we're going to be pilgrims. A lot of stuff is going to go on, but the Lord is going to be our guide. And then coming into, women in that day, when a woman was touching my face, I didn't want anything to do with woman. Like, yeah, some of us argue and we say it now, in that day we're going to have this and that. But when stuff is really hitting the fan, it's the last thing from our mind, and we don't even know how the Lord's going to play it out. And then just going into that deliverance. So, brothers, I want to give all praises and honor and glory unto Yahweh, Bashim Yahweh Shai, Bashim Makar double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and to the Akim out here that's pushing this truth. Till next time, Yasharallah. Shalom.